Computer. Yes, I did it. Okay. Um, I'm going to do a brief introduction of our speaker, Bailey. Hi, Bailey. And if you guys don't follow Bailey on Facebook, she does a lot of street photography. She does some really cool urban stuff. And so it'll be fun to see her pictures big on the screen, life size, bigger than life size. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Bailey. I'm going to turn the volume down on my computer so we don't have a feedback. Okay, take it away.
Okay, so bear with me because I absolutely despise public speaking. But before we get started talking about photo series, I just thought I would kind of give some background about me as a photographer and kind of my process, how I got started, that kind of thing. And I have a multimedia artist statement that I'm going to share with you guys.
Yay.
So the first photo project I ever did, I was 13 years old in the 8th grade. I took the train into New York City and shot photos of Broadway theaters and marquees around the theater district, and took those photos and scanned them into the computer. Mind you, this was in like the year 2000, so software was not what it is now. And digitally manipulated those photos and then presented a project that was the original photo compared to the digitally manipulated photo. And as I said, I was like 12 or 13, and ever since then, I have been shooting photography. I really dove into it at about 17. I studied black and white film photography, learned how to do all my own developing and printing in the darkroom. In terms of digital photography, I am completely self-taught and completely self-taught in all the editing software as well. I don't like to box myself in terms of what type of photography I do. I more use characteristics of different subgenres of photography, meld them together, and shoot what speaks to me emotionally when I see it. I'm not someone who says, "Oh, I do landscape, or I do architecture, or I do portraits." I'm very open to any type of subject matter. That being said, I do specialize in music, lighting, and the artist. Also street photography and documentary photography, and I have a special interest and passion for social justice and storytelling as well. And all my photography is very by music, which I consider to be my one true love in this life. Even above photography, music is everything to me. One of the I name the majority of my photos the titles and song lyrics, and that concept was born out of one of the photo series. And I also pride myself on not being just a photographer, but an artist overall. I've done installation, sculpture, studio, multimedia, collage, all sorts of different types of art. And that is partially why I decided to create this. This is up on my website. I've created this multimedia piece that I do this a lot with different things that I'm working on photo series. But this is an artist statement that combines photos, videos, written word that I wrote myself, voiceover that I did myself. Often type of pieces, poetry, custom sound that I've done. As I said, video. I do this a lot with different series, but so this is just my artist multimedia artist statement that kind of gives you a little glimpse behind my process as a photographer. So we're going to go ahead and watch this. Sounds, still frames, and videos of the world around them. Soundtrack, the world is seen through the viewfinder. A viewfinder that focuses as much on emotion as it does the subject. Now, let me take you on a visual road trip to see pictures from my world. They are big things seen in a different light, seen by photographic. My thing. I developed in a basement darkroom, matured and inspired by years of pain and hardship. You see, I am the camera. I see the world in green, black, and white, and light show color. In singular moments, screen scenes, characters, stories, and songs. I see the details others pass by. The beauty is broken. I see a shot that seems to be a song, or hear a lyric and photos. I see injustices to fight, truths to tell, and lives change with a photograph. As an artist, I see myself as a personal storyteller, a singer-songwriter with a camera instead of a guitar. And everything I see, each moment I capture, every story I tell through my lens, these are the notes I string together to create my photograph. The composition I'll be creating today physically can't put this right up. And when that day comes, those moments, those stories, that photograph, Brian was a music turn my volume up.
Yeah, see if that works. They can't hear it very well at home. See what this does.
Love her. My daughter, sister, a friend. A survivor, a flower child with a rock and roll heart. And most of all, I am a photograph. I am a camera. I hope to find out that I am the eye of the world, and this is my discovery. Embrace it, because this is who I am. If the world are not sharing what you see at the intersection, art and so that is a photographer. And so now we're kind of going to get into the topic that I chose to speak about today, and that is photo series. That's something that in the last, I'd say, 5 years maybe, I have become very interested in, photo series are, there are different types of photo series. You can have a photo series that is a collection of images surrounded around a similar theme, a similar narrative, same subject matter, it might be a different experimental method type of most photo series are very storytelling based. A lot of them have a narrative that goes through the entire series from start to finish. When it comes to photo series, your artist statement is very important. The way you put your photos in is very important. There is a difference between technically difference between a photo series and a photo essay. In photo essays, there is more of an emphasis on, there's even more of an emphasis on storytelling and the order of to them. Some of my series, the second series we're going to look at, that I'm going to share today, kind of teeters on the edge of being a photo series or a photo essay. It could go either way. Most people would say that. So the first one I'm going to share with you today is a photo series titled Singular Moments. This photo series emerged very organically. It wasn't something that I planned out at all. It kind of came to life as I was shooting over the course of a few years. This is the one that was what birthed my titles being song lyrics. So this is Singular Moments, a diary of stories and songs, and it is based off of the song lyric by a singer-songwriter named Stephen Kellogg, who is a good friend of mine. And the concept, this series is based around a similar theme. It's a whole variety of different types of photography. Given what the theme is, which is singular kind of moment that you remember as long as you do this. So these moments that you may come across once in a lifetime and never see again. Given that it is very street photography series, but there are various types of photography captured in this series. And I don't know if you want me to read this out loud. This is the artist statement that goes with this series. So if people want me to read it out loud, should I read it? Sure. Okay. As an artist, I see myself as a visual storyteller, a singer-songwriter with a camera instead of a guitar. Creatively, I've always lived some race that solo, wander away and stumble upon the next singular moment. The unexpected moments, the subtle moments, the hidden moments that so often go unnoticed. Moments that will never come again. These moments are how I tell stories. It doesn't matter what I'm shooting, it can be the soul of the city, the heartbeat of live music, nature, architecture, or person's truth. I find moments in it all, and when I play the shutter, these moments become my photographic song. The directions to these moments can't be found on a map. They are the unexpected detours, the roads less traveled, the destination discovered just around bend. And when I take that detour, when I travel down my gravel road, the magic of those singular moments always finds me. When I'm lucky to find familiar faces too, right? How do you open when you recognize them? Because without them, without me, they may never be seen. Flower blooming it's the texture created by us and relationship paint, people living on the street whose beauty still shines through. My road trip to discovery has no end. Feeding moments to create new stories to tell. It's not a melody of God, but a harmony to by your soul. After all, poet and word of the best thing I understand. So you'll see at the bottom, that is the song that goes with each photo. It's the title of the song there. Those of you, only a few of you, I think saw this. That was based on this. That was based on the series. It has been honed and shaped and changed since then. But in the gallery, these photos would hang. I wasn't able to do it after before more time, but they would hang guys like a photo and have the lyric displayed underneath it, large like phone or mounted up underneath it, it wouldn't be on
Because I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay,
I'm gonna try that.
so that's, we'll just go through these photos. Read the lyric. It goes with each photo. And again, as I said, the idea behind this series is just these moments that you see that you don't come across often. It may be something you stumble upon, it may be something that happens once in a lifetime, and that is what ties all these images together to create these series. And also the theme of song lyrics being a stairway through the walls. And you'll every day fast. Repetition and places that the lyrics come from.
Where's our teacher? There's an average second that people sit in a museum in front of a photo, and it's like 8 to 10 seconds or something that people usually spend looking at one piece of art. Now, where's that? That's
Downtown St. Louis.
was that for the opera concert?
It was at St. Louis Unforked Festival.
Okay. So are most of your photos, are most of your photos in St. Louis photos then?
No.
Okay. The piano was New York, right?
Yeah.
Remember you showed that? You showed the piano photo.
Yeah. The majority of my photos are actually not taken in St. Louis. New York.
Yeah. Now, was that just out on the street or was that? And you have a learn, you like, you feel like.
So I usually, my go-to is the 24-105. I also use the telephoto. Mostly, I use the telephoto a lot for protests when I'm shooting protests to get close up.
Right.
Facial facts. And I don't ever usually do wider than 24. I have a wider lens, I barely ever use it. I'm actually probably selling because it never gets used.
Do you pick a shot first and then find the lyric that goes to it most of the time?
Good question. It's a mixture of both. Sometimes I will hear a lyric and know that I want to create a photo with that lyric. For example, there's a song about seeing ghosts in the Chelsea Hotel, which is a hotel in New York City. So I purposely went to the Chelsea to shoot photos of the Chelsea Hotel in hopes of getting
Yes.
a picture.
Dots in it, yep.
Yeah, there's also a photo that was in this series that was, I didn't know exactly the photo I would get to mention, but I knew I wanted it. That was like a mixture of both. I knew I wanted the photo to go with other pieces of Cinderella dances. But I didn't know what I was doing. I looked into this woman crossing Broadway to go
Gotcha.
take a photo that just happened to be perfect for
Gotta
the
put
picture.
yourself in the right place,
Yeah,
right?
so some kids plan some of it. This was on an outing with this group. This was on a photo flood.
That's awesome.
All the protest photographs we got all in St. Louis. Hey, this is an artist I had working for so far down St. Louis, but this was painted. This is the first protest I ever shot and was what kind of sent me into the social justice protest photography. This was up at the airport in January 2017. Here? Yeah, at the airport. This was at a children's Black Lives Matter march in Kirkwood that Diana was at shooting. This was shot at the Remembrance Memorial Ceremony for the CVPA school shooting. This was at Cherokee Street Jazz, probably locked out during the parade, and a couple who were Cherokee Street, just went nuts in front of the parade and made for some amazing photos. That was on photo down in Soulard. This was at Wildflower Farm with Women in Focus. That is at the St. Louis Zoo. This is in New York. This is actually part of a whole series of bodega cats and shop cats that I've done. Also New York. All digital now. This is in Nashville. This is St. Louis on a photo flood. This was at a So Far Sound St. Louis show at Verde on Cherokee. This was at Cinco de Mayo on Cherokee. I do a lot of, almost all of the Cherokee Street events I shoot for them as an event photographer, and I like to take some shots for myself when I can, when I'm working for them, if the event offers for it. So like Jazz Crawl, I did some street photography, more arty stuff while I was down there. I do at Cinco too. That they don't get those photos because they're just too arty for them. Well, too arty for event photography. This is backstage at the pageant with Matt Carney, who is a musician. Yeah, an international touring artist. This is in Washington Square Park in New York. This man actually talks to the pigeons and calls them, and they literally come when he calls. It's pretty amazing. He called them to me, and they were all over me on my camera everywhere. My cousin took pictures of it. It was crazy. This is a trippy self-portrait shot in the subway in New York. So this, the people in the window to the right, if you guys are looking at it, are in a subway across the platform. So that is the end of that series. And then I don't know if anybody has any questions or if we want to just go into the other series. Okay. So this second series is a documentary-based, very story-driven photo series. This series is much different in a lot of ways. It's all built on a similar subject matter and topic. As you can see here, the flag is how many daughters, how many sons, and it is a series that looks at the gun violence epidemic through the eye of the parents in St. Louis who have lost a child to gun violence. This series, no one has seen this until now. So,
Right.
you guys are the first to see this. It is still in the works. I have I have 3 more shoots planned and some more parents that I'm speaking with. This type of series is one that takes a lot of planning. These documentary-based series that are like this, that are these long form projects. This is not a various, meetings and research and planning and a lot of pre-work to get this type of series started. So I've been working on this since the beginning of November.
Freelancers, before you start showing these pictures, how do you approach something like that? Do you contact people? Like, how do you?
Yeah. So you can go about it various ways, but I decided to reach out to different organizations who work with parents and victims of gun violence and parents who have dealt with gun violence losses, to help connect me with people who would participate in the project. I also did a lot of my own research on gun violence victims in the St. Louis area. I looked up people who lost children. Yeah, so that I knew that gave me an idea of certain people who would be willing to put their story, their child's story out there, sign a photo release so that I could use the photos at any, in publications, at photo festivals, etc. So a lot of the people who I've done so far, some of them came from different contacts that I have through the activist community, through the activist community that I'm with. I have done a ton of work for this series with Cal Brown, Mike Brown's stepmother, who runs with Mike Brown's father, Chosen for Change, their organization that works with parents who have lost a child in a traumatic way. Not just police brutality or gun violence, they deal with parents who have lost children to suicide, all sorts of different types of issues. So I've done a ton of work with them for that. I'd say maybe half of the participants came from that. Some are people that there have been people who were referred to me from parents who participated in it, who then said, I think this person would be great to have involved. So yeah, I reached out to a lot of organizations. Crime Victim Center I worked with, Metro East Moms Demand Action gave me a couple names of people. So that was how I went about it. I didn't want to approach the parents individually. This is a very sensitive subject. I also interviewed them as part of this. You'll see the photos. There are quotes that go along with some of the photos. I interviewed the parents. I'm asking them to relive the worst day of their entire life. And so I wanted to be very sensitive of how I went about getting participants and also just the whole process. I did a pre-phone call or an in-person meeting with every single parent who participated before we did the photo shoot so that I could tell them about the project, have an open dialogue, let them know that if at any point they needed a break, they needed to take time, they could, say, pause, I need to stop if they were uncomfortable with any question, anything, that I was totally fine with that, and whatever their boundaries were, I would respect them. So in this type of work, a lot of times this type of documentary based series, you're going to be dealing with things like that, like boundaries that you need to be really aware of, because the nature of these series are often very serious topics. So this series was jointly inspired by this song lyric by The Killers, and a children's gun violence memorial that I saw, that was a traveling exhibit that I saw in Webster Groves. That was in 2021, I believe. So the lyric is, so how many daughters, tell me how many sons do we have to put in the ground before we just break down and face it? We got a problem with guns in the land of the free. And this here is the current artist's statement narrative for this piece. There's going to be a more in-depth one, but as this project is still in the works, this is what I have so far. So it says, How Many Daughters, How Many Sons is a multidisciplinary photo-based project that looks at the gun violence epidemic through the eyes of parents in the St. Louis, Missouri area who have lost a child to gun violence. Jointly inspired by a childhood gun violence memorial I stumbled upon by the Missouri chapter of Moms Demand Action and a lyric from The Killers' 2019 protest song, Land of the Free. The series combines photographs and the parents' own words to tell the stories of the children they lost and the grief and lives they have left behind. These personal experiences and stories are meant to bring communities of epidemic gun violence not just in St. Louis but across the country, being hoped to create awareness and inspiring action towards change. I truly feel that showing the individuality of each victim and family and looking at victims through the lens of being someone's child will make people feel this epidemic on a real emotional level, as opposed to seeing only statistics. When stories are brought to life and people feel others' pain and resulting emotions, that is when actionable change happens. As someone who strives to use my art to contribute good to the world, inspiring people to step up and act is the ultimate goal. So we start the series with Felicia Moore, who was 21. This is Felicia, my mentor, she had a life-size cutout of her son that she posed with. I asked all the parents to pick a location for the photos that was meaningful to them and their child, or to their child. I really stressed personalizing all of these photos. Parents create items that belong to their kids, or photos of their kids, or something that represents their kids, so that I could really get that message of the person and that was lost to that house. And it just taking a photo. I wanted to really individualize each set of photos. Thank you. I had no idea what I was getting into when I showed up at her house. So
That was, I mean, great news.
Do you use a flash or do you use a natural light?
natural. I did not. I barely. Only time I ever use a flash is for event photography. And this woman actually, this is her daughter. That's pictured behind, that's the other cardboard cutout. Her son was murdered. I've been incredibly just blown away by these parents that I've met doing this. I can't explain to you enough how life-changing this project has been, and I think a lot of people who do these types of photo series and really immerse themselves in the lives of these people in situations like this find themselves. This is a photo of his son who he left behind, and with his that is Felicia, and she has a photo of him as a baby, with the cardboard cutout. Her living room. It was Christmas time. Christmas tree was decorated and all sorts of mementos and things from both of her children. You know, photos and mementos of her children all over her living room, just as a remembrance of both of her children she lost. She also has and the support network that these parents have within each other has been one of the other things that I've learned about that really has blown me away with this series, doing this series. I did not know, I mean, I knew that there were, obviously I knew there were all these parents in St. Louis who had lost a child to gun violence. I did not know there was a whole support for one another. I've kind of created this whole, support system through different, you know, groups that they work with, different foundations that they started in their children. Now we move on to Lisa Tompkins. She is the mother of William Kahim Bellamy, who was 18. In this photo, she is standing in the spot where he was shot on his high school campus. Just weeks after graduating, he was killed at 18 years old. And doing this series, I originally started the series just as mothers, and then had a very conversation with Al Brown, Mike Brown's stepmom, about how fathers are often forgotten about when it comes to losing a child. And so I decided to include fathers in it as well. And it's interesting, some of the most outgoing and like wanting to speak and some of the longest interviews have been fathers. He likes to make TikTok videos, so we pulled up his TikTok and got some photos of his TikTok videos.
Like, are some of these, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you want to capture a certain moment you're asking them to do something, or this was kind of game.
Yeah, so I just asked her to take out her phone and look at some videos of Kahim on his TikTok, because on our call before the photo shoot, she had told me that he really loved making TikTok videos. So I just asked her to take out her phone and scroll through and look at some videos of him on TikTok, and I shot that while she was doing it. This is a plaque that his school put up in the spot where he was killed. I tried to do, I didn't want to do just portraits with this. I wanted, you know, complimentary shots, detailed shots. You'll see one of the other, there are some that include photos of the location of the shooting if the parent chose to do the photo shoot there. Which I was surprised multiple parents chose to do the photo shoot at the site of where their child was killed. And you see here more, you know, quotes from the interviews. In a gallery setting, my plan for this show is to do a very installation-based show with not just photos, but with the quotes. There will be a couple of the photos will be larger, you know, big, and then with quotes, and then there will be some of these ones that are in between the ones with quotes will be smaller surrounding, and each parent will have their own section in the gallery. I'm planning on having a gun violence memorial wall that people can interact with and write memories and notes and honor people who have died of gun violence on in the gallery. I have permission from almost all the parents to use the audio recordings of their interviews in any way I want. So there will be audio components to the exhibit. The transcripts of every interview will be there so that if people want to read the transcripts of the interviews, they'll be hanging by each parent, so that they can really get the whole idea, because maybe the part of the story that speaks to someone isn't the quote that I chose that spoke to me. It might be some other part of the interview that I did with the parent. So I wanted to offer all those words to the viewers of the piece.
So, keep moving forward.
Yes, I have.
I don't know, you have told me about it, and the don't stop with that one.
Yeah, I have. There are a couple that are booking out like 2027. So I'm looking at right now possibly doing, most everybody's booked out that I've contacted, and I've contacted a bunch of people, are booking out late 26 to 27 now. So I'm looking at possibly doing like a weekend or week-long pop-up and then going forward with a longer show in the future. So now we have Mike Brown, father of Mike Brown Jr. He chose to do his photo shoot at Normandy High School, where Mike graduated before he.
I probably had a moment for many years ago.
And this is, Mike Brown Sr. is wearing his varsity jacket from Normandy, but you will see in another one of the photos, he has had Mike's year added to his jacket, so it represents both him and his son. Here you see his year was 97 on the sleeve, and then he had Mike's year 2014 added to the back of his jacket. And he wore that jacket to represent Mike. It was interesting. Almost all of the parents cried at the exact same moment. If the parents cried during the photo shoot, which almost all of them did, that I've worked with so far. Here, we'll pause that thought, because this photo was one of those moments. I saw the sun come shine. The sun was just shining in right between his legs like that, with these two photos of Mike on either side of him. And it was just like the angel was shining through in the middle of that photo, gracing us with his presence. It was just one of those very moving moments. As soon as I saw that light flare, it was just like goosebump moment. And I didn't place him in a way to have that light in between his legs, like in between the center there. It completely was a fluke. And I noticed it while I was shooting the photo. I think this has been the only one. There was a shooting where a 19-year-old young man was killed a mile down the road in the middle of one of my photo shoots. Yeah, so I don't drive, so my mom was with me. Some of them she just like waited in the car most of the time. She didn't she just mostly waited in the car. Mike Brown's stepmom was at this one. Couple of them, they had a person with them, but mostly it was just me and the parent, and then my mom in the car. So, oh, Yeah, so the parents, almost all of them cried at the exact same moment, if they cried. And it was when I asked them to look at their child's photo. And it almost immediately upon asking them to look at their almost every single parent cried the second they looked down at their child's photo. So this is Connie and Keith Johnson, parents of Jay Pearson, who was 23. He was killed inside this market behind him. He was breaking up a fight between two people that he had absolutely nothing to, he had nothing to do with the fight. He was breaking up the fight and was shot and killed.
I mean, how many of these do you think are just at the wrong place at the wrong time?
Some of them have been completely random. Some of them were other people they were with were targets and they wound up getting shot instead of the person who was the actual target. There are a couple that were, that they have absolutely no idea why, that there's rumors on the street of why the person was shot, but no one really has any idea for sure. That is the bracelet that Jay was wearing when he was shot and killed. His mother was able to get it because she worked at the hospital and they let her slip it off over. I really wanted to get a couple, at least one set of parents that was both parents, because a lot of times with tragedies like this where parents lose a child in such a traumatic way, the marriage doesn't survive. So I really wanted to make sure I highlighted at least one set of parents that both of them were together. Yeah. Yeah. And so here's one of the shots that's like, that's a complimentary shot. That's the location of the shooting. And this is a photo of him and the bracelet leaning against that market. James Bolden is the father of Jamila Bolden. She was 9 years old. Her story went national. You will probably recognize this story when she was shot in Ferguson around the corner from where Mike Brown was killed, sitting on her mother's bed doing homework when a bullet came through her house. And in this photo, he is wearing a bracelet that she made. She loved to make bracelets. That was one of her favorite hobbies. So he wore this bracelet that she made, and he wore black and white to the photo shoot because she loved praise dancing for church. And when they did praise dancing in church, they dressed the kids on the praise dance in the praise dancing group in black and white. This quote's a little longer, so let me know when it's good to move on. And this is a good photo to bring this up. When I went about matching, choosing quotes that I wanted to highlight, I didn't want to shy away from quotes like this that are extremely emotional, but and hard to read, because I think that's an important part of this is the hard stuff. This is a hard topic, and I think we don't want to shy away from that. This needs to be known, this kind of thing that is said in this quote. But in terms of matching the quotes and picking which photo, I went about it with what photos did I want to highlight, but also what quote went well with the photo. So this one in particular talks about how he felt that God let him feel a spirit, and he's holding the cross in this photo. And so I kind of paired them up because I thought that meshed well together. Are we good to move on from this? Thank you. That's just a close-up of his two bracelets, that the one that she made and this other one that he wore. That's him on the corner of the street where she was killed. The corner of Canfield and Ellison in Ferguson.
That frame had been held so much, it was a little worn.
It was a very worn frame, and it was, you could tell the photo was taken on like an old digital camera because it was really pixely and like had been printed bigger than what it probably should have been printed. This was one of my favorite, I hate to say favorite, but this quote was one of the ones that I thought was the most important to share out of any interview I did with any parent. And neither her or her mother were the target of the shooting. The person who shot into their house thought someone else was in there. This is Margaret Jones. Her son, Jermaine Antonio West Jones, was killed at 26. This is the woman who I was interviewing when the young man was killed in my Alabama. This is her standing in the exact spot where she held him as he took his last breath on this lawn. And she is wearing the Boston Celtics jersey. She is wearing the Cardinals jacket, and the Celtics hat were all his clothes. This is kind of interesting. This box that's at the bottom step here, multiple parents had that same type of box decorated that they brought with them. They were made at a retreat for mothers who had lost a child. They were memory boxes that they made at a grieving mother's retreat. And the parents who brought them didn't know each other. They didn't know they were bringing the box to the photo shoot. They just randomly decided to bring it. And hers had dogs attached to the top of it. And she had decorated it and all sorts of stuff that represented him and the things he loved. Inside the box, this is a card that he made her for Mother's Day that has song lyrics that are all rap lyrics about moms on it. And she had glued that to the inside of the memory box. Shalisa Blackwell, mother of Corey Blackwell Gines. He was 19. His death is still unsolved. I have learned that is a huge problem in St. Louis, unsolved murders. That and prosecutorial misconduct that result in the criminals getting off for what they've done. And what she said here about turning her pain into purpose, I found that is the case with a lot of the parents. A huge number of them have chosen to become very vocal about gun violence, about gun laws, speaking out in the community, working with other parents in the community who lost a child, starting foundations. A lot of them have done that. And this location, she chose a park where he liked to go sit and draw. And he used to sit and draw in front of this mural in this park. That is a piece of art that he made. You see this puzzle piece photo frame here. At least two of the parents I photographed brought a photo of their child in a puzzle piece frame. And I have to think that's because they're the missing puzzle piece at this point. Almost all of the mothers had necklaces that they had made that had their children's photos on them. And she had this photo of him in front of where we took the photos of her. So. And she didn't have an actual, this would happen with multiple parents actually. They didn't have actual physical copies of the photos, of some of the photos they wanted to use in their photos for this series, and they didn't have a way to get it printed, so I had them send them to me and I printed them and brought them to the section for them. You know, a lot of it is teamwork with the people that you're documenting, and you know that you're documenting their lives, and there's a lot of teamwork that goes into this type of photo series. This is Atif Mar, Sr., who is the father of Isis Aaliyah Mar. She was 19. He was the passenger in a car that they were trying to kill the driver because he was testifying against someone in a murder. He was one of two parents that I've worked with so far who chose to do their photo shoots at Wool Recreation Center in the city. One of them chose, she's not in this presentation because I haven't finished editing her photos yet, but one of them chose the football field where her son played football, and he chose inside the rec center. Isis spent a lot of her growing up there, and there are memorials to her inside the recreation center. They also have a program called I Am that's a mentoring program that they do with the kids. She mentored young kids there, and they do this program. Growing up, Atif used to say to Isis every morning, "I am," and she would say something, and it was to help her know that she was always something and worthy. And so Wool Recreation Center started this program, I Am, and there's stuff all over the walls that say I Am, and they have kids fill out, worksheets that say I am, and then they put the things that they are to remind them that they're worthy of things and that they have a future. Many of the parents wore either their child's clothes or t-shirts that had photos of their child on them. And that is a painting that was done for them by Faces Not Forgotten, the organization Faces Not Forgotten, which is based here in St. Louis, that is a woman named Christine. I'm blanking on her last name, but it begins with an I. She paints does paintings of children under the age of, I think, 19 who have been killed by gun violence. And she also makes quilts out of the paintings. So this is this poster that was on the wall that's in memory of her, and it says, I am, and it has the little worksheets from all different young girls who had been mentored in that program on it. And this is a shot of the outside of another complimentary type shot that's the outside of the rec center. It was such an important part of her growing up that I wanted to get a shot of that rec center to include with her. I think he did that on purpose. Yeah, I think he did that on purpose. I kind of got that from him, and that was part of why Wolves started the I Am program, not just because her dad used to say that to her, but also because of her initials. Now we have Skyla Parnell, mother of Aaron Prayer. He was 21. He was killed over in East St. Louis. And we did the photo shoot outside her home across the river it wasn't East St. Louis, it's the town next to it. I don't remember what it was called. That might have been it. Both Shalisa and Skyla are part of the Metro East Moms Demand Action, and they have both gone to Washington and advocated for gun legislation law changes. I just love this photo of her, just like the look of endearment on her face looking at the photo of her son. This is another one of the other moms who had the memory box, and she has all these photos of the inside of it of him. A lot of the parents had pins in addition to necklaces. They had pins of their kid.
Yeah, like, how do you know galleries to go to?
So I did a lot of research into galleries whose missions aligned with the type of show this is, who prioritize social issues, who aren't afraid to take a stand on a type of issue. Some galleries would shy away from something because they don't want to be controversial. So I did a lot of research into that, what their missions are. I also did research into galleries that are open to emerging artists, because I'm looking at bigger galleries, and not all of them are open to bringing in emerging artists. So that was kind of, I originally narrowed it down to two that were my top two picks. One of them doesn't do solo shows anymore, so that was a total bummer because they would have been absolutely perfect. This is Erica. She goes by Minnow. Her daughter, Whitney, was 24 when she was killed in a random shooting, standing outside her car. This is Erica with her grandson, Yakeem. She's had custody and been his guardian since his mother was killed. He was in the back seat of the car at 1 year old when she was murdered. This is another one of those quotes that's hard to read, but very important. this door behind her, was Whitney's bedroom door in their house when Whitney was growing up. It is signed by all sorts of friends of Whitney's, and has stuff that Whitney wrote on it. A whole bunch of the people who have signed this door have been killed by gun violence. And this is Yakim and Minnow's hands with where right in front of where one of the places Whitney had signed. And you can see over here a little bit, this says R.I.P. Corey. That was one of the things on the door. There they are with the door. This was the item that Minnow really wanted to use to represent Whitney. And she told me she was lucky that the apartment they were living in when that door was in it, somebody bought the house and it was a friend of theirs and they gave her the door. It was a friend of her son's and they gave her the door. And she also wanted, I had another mom who isn't in this presentation because I haven't finished editing those either, but she wanted to include Yakim as part of her representation of Whitney. And I have another mom who brought friends and siblings of her sons to the photo shoot to represent him. And that's the door. This shot and not this shot, the hand shot was planned out before I went to do the shoot. I knew I wanted to get the shot of the hands in front of the door. And then this one, when I asked her to stand in front of the door, as soon as I saw her standing in front of the door, I knew I wanted to do the same thing with depth of field. And then this is a photo of the Childhood Gun Violence, Missouri Gun Violence Memorial that was the inspiration for this project. It says seen in Kirkwood, but that's a lie. It was actually Webster Groves. I have to fix that typo. And it was all t-shirts, and each t-shirt had an age written on the cardboard that was holding the t-shirt. And there were 46 t-shirts for the 46 people under 18 that had been killed in Missouri by gun violence in 2020. And a whole bunch of the shirts at this memorial actually belong to the children who were killed. And it traveled all around Missouri. It was put together by Moms Demand Action. So that is the end of that series. I do have a plan to add to the series and for the gallery show. I'm going to have 4 or 5 photos to break up the each parent set that I'm going to go shoot photos of street art and murals that are anti-violence and anti-gun violence based street art. So there are going to be some very arty photos of murals around St. Louis that are anti-violence based. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's become a huge passion project, this project. It's just been absolute, thank you. I have a plan to apply for grants to expand to other cities.
And you also exhibited stuff on your gallery.
Oh yeah, I've submitted it to multiple places outside of St. Louis region. I just submitted it to, I submitted it in the very early stages to Photoville, the photo festival in New York that's outdoors in Brooklyn Bridge Park, in Dumbo, and did not get accepted to that. It was in the very, very early stages. And so I thought the submission was really strong. Now the submission would be stronger because I had only done like 6 shoots at that point. But it's super hard to get into that festival anyway. Like they have like thousands of people from around the world. I just submitted it to Center Santa Fe, which is a photo gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that does an open call. Yeah, so I submitted it for their grant program, which you get a show if you win the project development grant or project launch grant, which is for almost completed or completed photo series. And then I also submitted it for the social awareness prize, which you also get a show if you win that. I mean, it's a pipe dream, but I submitted it. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I'm lucky too in that I can say that some of my social justice work has been used by like CNN and stuff. So that's good. Like CNN, Washington Post, because a bunch of my coverage from the Children's Black Lives Matter march that was in Kirkwood got picked up by international news outlets. So I'm lucky in that, like in a bio to places, I can say that kind of thing that gives you, yeah. And on my website, there are some other photo series if you want to check them out. There is one that I did. It is BaileyElizabethPhoto.com. Very easy. And it's the same. My Instagram is the same exact thing. So my Instagram is just at Bailey Elizabeth Photo. So I made the match on purpose. I thought that was convenient. But there are on my website, there's a tab on the menu part on the top. There's a specific tab that says photo series. And up there, there's also my Children of the Movement, which is all, it's a Black Lives Matter series that is all children activists. And then there is one that I did during COVID called Beyond the Glass that is all family, it's all portraits of families taken through windows during COVID that I did within my neighborhood. And then there's one it's a series, but it's more like a visual diary that I did during COVID called Sign of the Times. And that was named after a song lyric that had nothing to do with COVID, that the song lyric is deep in the virus, Sign of the Times. So I had to use that. It's all signs from COVID. So it's restaurant closed signs, it's support healthcare worker signs, some are homemade signs that were outside lawns in my neighborhood. Some are, the ones that you could go buy places. Some are, we're closed for COVID, written on windows and that kind of thing. So that's one of the other series that's up there. I have a couple others that I'm going to add. I have a series that is a series I did with a high school classmate that is showing her mastectomy scar from breast cancer. It's a portrait series that I did with her. I'm going to add that one up there, and each photo is accompanied. She wrote poetry throughout her whole cancer treatment and recovery and survivorship. So each photo is accompanied by one of her pieces of poetry that she wrote about her cancer journey. So, thank you. Thank you. I have my next one already cooking in my head. So I'm like, I got to finish this one, but I already have my next idea cooking in my head. So, and you find inspiration in the weirdest places. The next one, I was inspired by a docuseries, an episode of a docuseries I was watching on the civil rights movement. And that was where that idea came to me from. So other art can inspire your own art. And it was just something it was just a piece of an interview that somebody said that sparked this idea in my head that for my next one. Huh? I'm from New York, yeah. I lived there until I was 20. I'm 38 now. So, no, I lived there till I was 22, maybe 21, something like that. I'm from New York by way of New Jersey. So my mom always jokes that I'm the one who likes, my sister hates Bruce Springsteen, and my mom and I are like super Bruce Springsteen fans. My sister was born on Staten Island. I was born in the town next to Asbury Park. So my parents also always joke that I got the Springsteen bug because I was born in Asbury Park. I know. Ah, yeah. Yeah, any other questions? I hope I didn't run over on time. Okay, I'm gonna stop my screen share. Is that good? Oh, and there are some other I have some other of my like multimedia pieces that I've done that incorporate photos and